Today on the Blockchain Report, Bitcoin's holding strong around 115K, and it might be because Trump just signed a rare earth deal with Japan days before meeting China, because nothing builds trust like prepping your escape plan before the dinner date. Hurricane Melissa is now stronger than Katrina and closing in on Jamaica, turning the Caribbean into the world's most expensive slip and slide. And Argentinian President Javier Milei's party chains on its way through midterms, sending bonds skyrocketing and analysts Googling the Spanish word for euphoria. All that on today's show. Let's go! Good morning, my pioneers of digital sovereignty, and welcome back to another episode of the Blockchain Report. I'm Hank Hudson, coming to you live from San Francisco, California. It is Tuesday, the day your coffee hits before your limit order does. And before we belly flop into today's vat of rate cut rumors, tariff truces, and CEOs role-playing as central banks, do the thing for me. Smash the subscribe button and follow RoxomTV, the Blockchain Report, and Hank at RoxomTV, because if your financial strategy is vibes and virality, well, you're one TikTok away from donating to someone else's exit liquidity. All right, let's prime the engines and check this morning's market rundown to see who's mooning, who's praying, or who's melting, and who's praying the SEC hits snooze for one more day. Let's go. All right, this Tuesday brings tidings of good fortune. So far, Bitcoin hovering around that 115K mark. Remember, just about two and a half weeks ago, we saw that flash crash. We were sitting at 124. We went all the way down to 102, and we kind of been meddling around the 110 arena for a bit. But this week is starting strong. We're back in the 115 area. You can see not a lot of movement in the last 24 hours, but things certainly seem to be on the upswing, especially with new rate cuts expected tomorrow or this week. So we should see some more stuff coming in the not distant future. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about what we're seeing in the charts by going into our Bitcoin alpha portion of this morning's market rundown. This is where we make on-chain metrics sound slightly less, astrophysics-y and slightly more like money. So let's get into it. Currently, again, Bitcoin is around that 115K level, while everyone else is busy arguing about whether this is the real bull run or just another fake out. We're going to do what adults do. Okay, and what is that? Well, we're going to look at the data and see if it tells us anything useful. Today, we're breaking down 3 charts that matter right now. Okay, so the charts we'll be breaking out is the first one is the short-term holder cost basis chart, then the short-term holder MVRV Z-score, and the funding rates on perpetual futures. Together, they paint a pretty darn good picture of where we're at, why the bulls are breathing a little easier right now, and why it still might be a bit too soon to start ordering that laser-eyed Lambo. All right, let's dig in with our first chart here. So remember, this one is the short-term holder cost basis chart. Now, this metric basically tracks the average price that recent Bitcoin buyers, so those who've bought within the last 155 days, what they paid for their coins. Think of it like the break-even line for short-term investors. Now, when Bitcoin trades above that red line we can see there, it usually means the market's got momentum. When it dips below the line, things are starting to wobble a little bit, confidence is fading, and everyone suddenly remembers that they have rent due. Right now, Bitcoin is trading around 115,200, and that short-term holder cost basis sits below that, around 113,200. We recently broke above that mark, and when the price dipped earlier today, it bounced right off of that line like a basketball off the hardwood. Now that, my friends, is bullish behavior. It shows that buyers are stepping in right where you'd expect, defending their cost basis. Now, this level often acts like a launch pad in bull markets and a ceiling in the bear markets. So what's holding it here? That's exactly what you want to see if you're a Bitcoin bull. That brings us on to our second chart, and one of my favorite nerd metrics out there. That is the short-term holder MVRV Z-score. This chart measures how much profit or loss recent buyers are sitting on, but it's adjusted for volatility, so we can spot when things get statistically too hot or too cold. Now, when this number we're seeing here goes way up, short-term holders are deep in profit. And historically, that's when things get a little overheated, meaning, hey, maybe don't FOMO in right here. Now, when it drops down, that's usually when everyone's underwater. Sentiment is awful, and ironically, that's when it's been the best time to buy. Right now, the chart shows a clean bounce off that minus 0.5 standard deviation line. That's market nerd talk for things cooled off and found a floor. This looks much more like a bull market dip than a market top. And we're not seeing the kind of blow-off behavior you'd get before a crash either. Bulls will be watching for a move up toward the 1 standard deviation level where local tops often form. And if we ever push toward 1.5, that's where you start hearing the words euphoria and overheated again. So in short, this chart says we're still early in the move, not late. Okay, so let's talk about our final chart here. It's about something a little more degen, and of course we are talking about funding rates, okay? This is the small fee traders pay each other on perpetual futures to keep the price of Bitcoin futures close to the spot price. Now, when funding is positive, it means the bulls are paying the bears. Too many people are betting long. When it's negative, the bears are paying the bulls, as in too many people are shorting. And here's where things get particularly interesting. Funding rates have been rising again and are now pressing up against the top of a descending range. That's trader speak for we've seen this movie before, okay? And the last 2 times we hit this level, we got a short-term correction, a kind of rinse and reset moment, if you will. So while bulls are in control right now, this chart suggests we could see one more little shakeout before the next leg higher. This isn't a bearish call, just a reality check, because in Bitcoin, markets rarely go straight up unless it's after they've shaken everyone off first. So what's the big picture here, gang? What are all these telling us, right? Well, if you put this all together, Bitcoin is holding above the short-term holder cost basis. Momentum indicators are looking pretty healthy, and while funding might be hinting at some short-term turbulence, the bigger trend is still looking pretty bullish. With rate cuts on deck and quantitative tightening potentially ending soon, the macro winds are finally shifting in Bitcoin's favor. But, and it's a big but, short-term volatility is still the name of the game here. We're in a bull market, but not a blind faith number go up market. You remember those. Smart bulls are still watching the data, taking the dips, and keeping their eyes on the long game. All right, so we got a lot of show in store for you today. We're taking a quick break first, but when we're back, we're going to be talking about this morning's top events in our bull run, and we'll be joined by a special guest in just a bit. So stay tuned. More Blockchain Report coming your way after this. Are you interested in effortlessly growing your Bitcoin portfolio? I sure am. And the Bitcoin credit card by Gemini earns you Bitcoin back on every purchase. Use it like any credit card. You can buy lunch, gas, or your weekly groceries. And you'll earn up to 4% back instantly in Bitcoin or one of over 50 other cryptos straight to your account. All that with no annual fee. And right now, you can grab a $200 Bitcoin welcome bonus. It's the easiest way to start building your Bitcoin stack. Just go to Gemini.com to learn more. All right, welcome back to the Blockchain Report. It's time for this morning's bull run as we go over the top stories of the day so that you can do other things with your morning. We do all the heavy lifting for you. So let's get into it. First up, Hurricane Melissa is now officially one of the most powerful storms ever recorded, stronger than Katrina, meaner than Maria, and way too close to Jamaica. Video from a U.S. military aircraft shows the views from inside the hurricane. Now, Melissa is a Category 5 monster with the personality of a blender and the patience of a glacier. It's expected to make landfall in just a few hours now, and officials have been begging people to evacuate, but as of Monday night, Jamaica's Minister of Local Government said the numbers in shelters were still very low, despite projections that up to 50,000 people might need to relocate. Health Minister Christopher Tufton has already confirmed 3 deaths and 13 injuries before the storm even made landfall. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is warning that no infrastructure in the region can withstand a Category 5 storm. Now, Melissa's storm surge could reach 13 feet high. For reference, that's about the height of a one-story house made entirely of water. Even after the eye passes, the second half of the storm will hit just as hard, and the calm in the middle is only halftime. Melissa, well, she's not done there either. It's expected to slam southeastern Cuba next as a Category 3, then hit the Bahamas and possibly even Bermuda before getting ripped apart by the jet stream over the North Atlantic. Now, the U.S. might not take a direct hit, but forecasters say that Melissa's moisture could help fuel a separate storm system across the East Coast later this week. Fox Weather has more on the storm. Roll the clip, guys.
We take you outside right now. Live shot of Kingston, Jamaica. Man, look at the rain. So much in the way of flooding is going to be a major concern for the island of Jamaica, not only for the intense rainfall coming from the sky, but for the intense storm surge that they will be experiencing. This is one of the most intense hurricanes and the third Category 5 storm of the Atlantic so far. We've had four Category 5 hurricanes back in 2005. So it's similar to 2005. Sadly, this is going to be the most impactful out of all the storms we've had in the Atlantic season this year so far. It's impressive. Look at the symmetrical image and structure of this storm. Looks like a perfect donut. It's not encountering wind shear. It has some very warm water to work with. And as of the 5 a.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center, the only thing that has changed is the speed. Now it's moving at 5 miles per hour. It continues its journey to the northeast as the steering mechanisms are starting to let this happen. The area of high pressure continues to break down and shift over to the east, and that will allow the storm to move over to the northeast as it is doing right now. Key messages, by the way, from the National Hurricane Center for Jamaica says this specifically: remain sheltered. Catastrophic flash flooding, landslides, and destructive winds will continue through today, causing widespread infrastructure damage, power and communication outages, and isolated communities. So total structure failure also possible as the center of the storm moves over the island.
So, in short, Jamaica's bracing for impact, Cuba's next in line, and the entire Atlantic is on alert. And President Trump has signed a deal with Japan to secure access to critical rare earth minerals just 2 days before his meeting with China's President Xi Jinping, because nothing says friendly trade negotiations quite like making backup plans before the first handshake. Trump and Japan's new Prime Minister Sanae Takahashi inked the deal in Tokyo, marking a new phase of cooperation on materials essential for everything from smartphones to fighter jets. China dominates this market and recently announced plans to tighten export restrictions. So the U.S. is moving fast to line up other partners like Australia and Malaysia, and now Japan. Takashi called the deal the start of a new golden age in U.S.-Japanese relations, which is a polite, diplomatic way of saying we're tired of relying on China. The timing, well, isn't exactly subtle either. Trump meets Xi in South Korea later this week, hoping to cool down months of tariff threats and trade tensions. Washington is reportedly seeking a one-year reprieve from China's mineral restrictions, but Trump's made it clear nothing's final until they meet face-to-face. And while Trump says a U.S.-China trade deal is coming soon, his meme coin decided to go vertical. The Trump token pumped 30% Monday, jumping from $6 to over $8. Meanwhile, Melania's token, yes, remember, she has one too, popped 45% because in crypto, any kind of adjacent publicity means somebody's already figuring out how to make money off of it. This rally came right after the market tanked earlier this month when Trump announced new retaliatory tariffs on China. So in true meme fashion, the coin crashed when he picked a fight and moomed when he made up. The Trump token's been ranging between $8 and $10 for months now before dipping to $5.40 after the tariff announcement. Now it's back up to $7.52 and seemingly holding pretty steady there. This week also marks the president's pardon of former Binance CEO Changpeng Zhao, better known as CZ, who Trump said was persecuted by the Biden administration. The Donald has also been promoting his DeFi project, World Liberty Financial, which at one point was rumored to be buying a stake in Binance.us, a claim that they denied, but only after everyone's bags were already up. Forget Make America Great Again, this is Make My Portfolio Great Again, or so it seems. All right, we're taking a quick break, but when we're back, more blockchain report coming your way, so stay tuned. We'll be back after this. And welcome back to the Blockchain Report. Joining us for our deep dive today, we've got the man, the myth, the legend himself, Borja Martel Seward, coming on board to talk to us about what is going on over at Roxom. Borja, can you hear me this morning?
Hey, Hank. Good morning. Thank you for having me, as always, and such a pleasure, as always. Pleasure and fun, because always talking with you is very fun. So, yeah, let's have some fun.
I'm ready to have fun, and I'm glad you are too, Borja, because we got a lot to talk about today. So I want to start talking about Roxom and give those that might not already be aware of it the short and skinny. So for people who might be hearing about the Roxom platform for the first time, Borja, can you tell us what is it, what's the big idea behind the company, and who did you build it for?
Yeah, amazing. So, Hank, Roxom is this platform made by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners, and the whole purpose that that we have here at Roxom is essentially, we like to say that we are here to unleash the Bitcoin economy. Sometimes people love it, but it may be like in the sky, right? So putting it down to earth. Essentially, Hank, what does unleashing the Bitcoin economy mean for Roxom? Well, I'll put it this way. If you're a Bitcoiner and you want to accumulate more Bitcoin, the only way to accumulate more Bitcoin is by thinking in Bitcoin, is by pricing things, assets, investments, just by pricing anything in Bitcoin. Because that is the only true way of, like, if you want to accumulate any given currency, then you need to think in that currency and you need to price things in that currency. The best example for this is Argentina. Like in Argentina, people live in pesos, but because they want to save in dollars and they want to accumulate dollars, they don't want to accumulate pesos, they price everything in dollars and they think in dollars and so on. It wouldn't make sense for an Argentine to say, like, I want to accumulate dollars, I want to save more dollars, but you know what? I think in pesos, and like everything I price it in pesos, because it wouldn't make sense. So this is what Roxom is about. If you want to, again, accumulate Bitcoin, and you want to make sure that over the years, over time, you have more and more Bitcoin every year, not less and less, well, then the only way to make that happen, to make it possible, is to price everything in Bitcoin, to think in Bitcoin, so that you understand that whenever you invest in a stock or in an asset or whatever you invest in, you need to be able to track the performance of this thing in Bitcoin. This is the only way in which you will be able to eventually like become a good Bitcoin investor and just accumulate Bitcoin over time, and to have a portfolio that has good returns in Bitcoin terms, right? Because if not, if you don't do this, what will happen is that you will just have the Bitcoin you have and you will never have more, right? Right. So the only way to have more Bitcoin is to think in Bitcoin and deploy your capital, your portfolio or assets in a way where you're tracking the performance, but in Bitcoin terms. So, so this is what Roxom is about. We are building Bitcoin capital markets, where essentially, in the same way that in the New York Stock Exchange, you can trade any asset priced in dollars, and in the London Stock Exchange, you can trade any asset priced in pounds. What we're doing in Roxom is that you can trade any asset but priced in Bitcoin. What we've just launched is our first two contracts, which is futures contracts, which is gold against Bitcoin, and the US 500, which is the SP 500 against Bitcoin as well. So today you can trade like two iconic assets, right? The most important index in the world against BTC, and gold, which is like the largest asset in the planet, with over $30 trillion with this spike up. against Bitcoin as well. So this is a little bit what we've just launched and what we're into.
Yeah, so I appreciate you giving us that breakdown, Borja. And with this new news of the Bitcoin-denominated futures, a lot of people hear that, their brains start to short circuit a little bit, and they're having to understand, wrapping their head around what that really means. So could you break that down a little bit for us? Like, what does that let traders actually do that they couldn't do before?
This is the most interesting part, and what I'm surprised the most, actually, Hank, about, which is, so again, until today or until last week, actually, Bitcoin was an asset for us, a currency, but for others an asset that you could only buy, right? Like you could only buy Bitcoin, and yeah, you could trade it and so on. We could arguably say that one of the ways of how using Bitcoin as your base currency to trade things against Bitcoin was crypto pairs like ETH-BTC, Sol BTC, and some of the crypto pairs that traders used to accumulate more Bitcoin. But besides that, Bitcoin was just something that you could just hold. From the 20th onwards of this month, when we launched, Bitcoin has become now it's possible for Bitcoin to be the true hurdle rate, the true base currency, the true measuring stick, right? And this is because now you can trade traditional assets, and upcoming you'll be able to trade all sorts of assets like FX, crypto, traditional assets, like really anything against Bitcoin. And this honestly means that now you can again finally use Bitcoin as a measuring stick, and that you can invest in Bitcoin terms. So what's happening right now in the platform, for example, and I just tweeted about this today, is me personally, for example, this weekend, I've already made roughly 3% gain in Bitcoin in the last 3 days. And the reason of how I achieved that was because I shorted gold on Saturday against Bitcoin. And then I shorted gold again yesterday. And gold in Bitcoin terms has been going down for the last few days. So actually I made roughly a 3% in Bitcoin terms. So this is what it means. Now you can trade assets against Bitcoin, and you can actually have profits or losses, because it goes both ways, in Bitcoin terms. Right. So, and this is a true innovation. This is what we're seeing here, Hank, is like, imagine that we were in the 1700s and you see the New York Stock Exchange being born, and you say like, okay, now I can invest in companies like relative to the dollar, so like I can make good dollar returns and so on. Well, same thing, same process. Fast forward to 2025, and we're seeing this with Bitcoin and the possibility of investing and trading in Bitcoin terms.
Very cool. And who do you see using this product the most? Like, is it going to be Bitcoin native traders, or are you seeing more traditional players starting to dip their toes into the Bitcoin settled markets?
Look, I am very happy to say that we are seeing all sorts. We're seeing traders that now say like, oh my God, I can trade gold or the SP 500 against Bitcoin. Like, what the hell is going on? This is insane. Yeah. So we're all the way from traders that, I mean, traders just look for volatility, right? And by definition, a trader, what he wants to do is to buy low and sell high. And usually you will have like many traders that are agnostic of the thing. Like they will just, there's a series of traders that are experts. Like you have professional commodities traders, stock traders, like you have a specialization, of course. But then you also have like this concept of like traders as mercenaries, that they will trade anything that has like this kind of volatility, where they get the opportunity to buy low, sell high, or to short something high and close low, So we're seeing a lot of that, a lot of traders that now are like, hey, wait, like, I can do something I could never do before, which is basically like benchmark traditional assets against Bitcoin, and I can profit on that. So we're seeing that. And then we're seeing hardcore Bitcoiners who like are super bear some traditional assets, and they are very interested in like the hedging, because like for example, shorting gold or shorting the SP 500 against Bitcoin is a way to hedge that, right? So we also see a lot of Bitcoin, big Bitcoiners, hardcore Bitcoiners that now like think that and see that they can profit off of the, let's say, of the downfall of many important things in fiat. And again, gold represents the world's oldest currency and one of the oldest metals. And the SP 500 represents like the fiat economy, basically. And if you ask a Bitcoiner, hey, what do you think that the future of fiat is, and of an index like the SP 500 or the Dow Jones and so on, they will probably tell you that it's a very bad future in Bitcoin terms. So now you have like these hardcore Bitcoiners who see that they can now profit off of the downfall that they see in the upcoming future. So I would say we have both. I'm very happily surprised. And yeah, this is going to be a process. Like we're seeing also a lot of people that are like just going into the platform and looking and watching and getting used to like how looking at the world in Bitcoin feels like, because it's not something normal. But the moment it clicks in and the moment that you start feeling comfortable and like you truly assume that Bitcoin is your hurdle rate and it's like your your base currency, it just unleashes like insane things, and I think that we're seeing that already.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big change in the industry. And, from a big picture perspective, Borja, removing fiat from the equation entirely, like what does that unlock? Does it make markets more transparent, more efficient, maybe both?
Oh, well, this is a key point that you're mentioning, Hank, because like you just said, like there is no fiat involved whatsoever in this thing, and actually like not even indirect fiat, like through stablecoins. Like this is pure non-fiat currencies mixed up with traditional finance. And yes, to your question, this is like completely eliminating friction. Like today, if you are an investor or a person that you want to have exposure to different things, because like being completely honest, there's amazing stocks, and for the last few years there's been stocks that have outperformed Bitcoin. In the last year, Robinhood 150% in Bitcoin terms, Palantir 150% in Bitcoin terms. In the last 5 years, Nvidia 500% in Bitcoin terms. Okay, so there's things that outperform Bitcoin. I think that in the long run, no, but there's time frames in which like having Bitcoin is not necessarily the best investment for the sake of having more Bitcoin. And I say this as a huge Bitcoiner where my goal is to have more Bitcoin. And the truth is, the honest truth is that having Bitcoin is not always the best answer. So in this scenario, like this is my reason of why having some other assets that are not Bitcoin makes sense, because they can outperform Bitcoin. But then you also have other investors that want to have a little bit of Bitcoin, a little bit of this, and a little bit of that. But the truth is that today there is a lot of friction between the two worlds. And if you want to go from Bitcoin into traditional assets, or you want to go from traditional assets to Bitcoin, it's a long way. It takes days. It takes a lot of fees. It has a lot of friction. You need multiple accounts in multiple different places. So there's just a lot of friction. And what this creates is like complete interoperability and just the lack of friction, complete lack of friction to go from one world to the other world. And this is only the beginning, because then this will enable us to do things like Bitcoin repos, which are cash repos. This will allow us to do stock lending programs that yield in Bitcoin terms instead of yielding in dollars, so that then you will have people who will have their stocks in Roxom, and just because of you having your stocks in Roxom, you'll be able to generate Bitcoin yield on those stocks that you have, right? So which is insane. And there's an example I always give, like the most clear example to understand this is the following. Tim Cook from Apple, he makes no money on his Apple shares. And why is that? Well, because nobody in the planet wants to short Apple, because Apple is such a good stock in dollar terms that is always up and to the right, that nobody wants to short Apple. What does it mean? If nobody wants to short Apple? Well, it means that there is nobody borrowing Apple. So there is no interest rate on Apple. So stock lending programs, the way they work is that the stocks that yield the most amount of money are the stocks where you have a lot of people borrowing, shorting the shares because they are borrowing them, right? So it's like people are paying rent for your shares so they can short them. The problem with Apple shares, Apple stock, is that nobody wants to rent them because nobody wants to short Apple, right? So Tim Cook, let's say that he has plenty of Apple shares. Well, he makes zero money on his shares. If he wants cash, he will need to get a loan against his shares, or he will have to sell his shares. But he can't get any kind of income on the shares. What will happen in Roxom is the following. Because Apple in Bitcoin terms looks so bad, because Apple in Bitcoin terms is the complete opposite of the dollar chart of Apple. In dollars, Apple is up and to the right. In Bitcoin, is down and to the right. So when you see Apple in Bitcoin terms as a very weak stock, then the appetite for shorting Apple becomes very high. And there's plenty of people that say, like, I see a clear possibility of making money by shorting Apple in Bitcoin terms. What this creates is demand of Apple shares. Like, people will want to rent, again, to borrow, to rent those shares. And what happens when people are borrowing or renting the shares? Well, Tim Cook is getting income because he's getting paid by all the people renting and borrowing his shares to short them. So essentially, what does this mean? Today, Tim Cook does not get any income on his shares because there is no stock lending program for Apple shares. In a Bitcoin world, Apple will have a huge stock lending program. And this means that for Tim Cook, it's going to be better to have his shares in Bitcoin capital markets rather than in US capital markets or dollar capital markets. Yeah. And the reason for that is that in dollar capital markets, Tim Cook will not get any kind of income on his Apple shares, but in Bitcoin markets, he will get a lot of income on his Apple shares, and he will get it in Bitcoin. So this is just one example of, like, the things that are going to change that we are yet to see. Like, this is only the beginning. But this is gonna change really how many things work in the markets.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is huge. It feels like a step toward Bitcoin becoming more than just a speculative asset, maybe even more of like an account for markets. So do you see that as kind of where this is all eventually heading?
100%. And we're already seeing the feedback. Like, what we see and what the feedback that we're getting on social media, emails that we're getting, a community, and so on, is there are plenty of people around the world that would keep track of their portfolio in Bitcoin, right? And how much Bitcoin I have, how much Bitcoin am I making, any investment I have, what are the Bitcoin returns, and so on. And all of these people around the world were making this manually, right? So what we like now in Roxom, and I believe that we will get more competitors down the line, like what, again, we're unleashing the Bitcoin economy and working on Bitcoin capital markets. What I see is that Bitcoin capital markets are gonna facilitate people to just think in Bitcoin and live in Bitcoin and use Bitcoin as a measuring stick, which is exactly what you're saying now. And instead of doing everything manually and so on, and being in your Excel spreadsheet and like, this is how much dollars I had before and how much Bitcoin it was, and I bought this and now I have this and that, and all of these, like, let's say, manual calculations, where now Roxom is the first platform where we do everything for you, and it's completely Bitcoin native. And there will be plenty more to come. So yeah, like, this is definitely gonna accelerate the process in which the world starts using Bitcoin as a measuring stick, hurdle rate, or whatever you want to name it, unit of account, and it stops being like a speculative asset itself.
Yeah. And I got to talk too about, in order to get the word out there that this product does now exist, you and the team have started a pretty cool marketing campaign about the next big short. Can you tell us a little bit about that, how that came to be, how that's been going? I saw you had some trucks in New York City, and there's some cool videos that have been released. Can you tell us a little bit about that marketing campaign that you've launched? It's pretty cool.
Some call me Chicken Little.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, we should watch it for a minute.
Let me tell you a hard truth.
Yeah, I think we got it up right here now, playing on the side. I don't know if, are we able to get volume, guys?
It's ice melting by the second. Your savings, your salary,
There we go.
your time. Worth less every second. Everyone's using the wrong measuring stick. Switch the denominator. Price the S&P into Bitcoin. Hard, fixed, unprintable. Suddenly your unstoppable index, it's collapsing. And while you cling to dollars, well, Wall Street already switched. Before, you needed 2 brokers.
Still getting my ninja bonus though, right?
Plenty of spreadsheets. And my quant!
I hate this part.
I was right, and I'll be right again. If I were you, I'd thank me.
You know my name's Dave, right?
Very cool. Now, so Borja, how did this idea for this campaign come to be?
So, I mean, this is we're very happy with the outcome of this campaign, Hank, and truly this is a contextual analysis, and really the analysis is like the Big Short in 2008, where the housing market was crumbling in dollar terms, and then we had basically a massive crisis. From the Bitcoin perspective, we're seeing the same thing. Like we picture ourselves and in this concept in particular, like we frame ourselves as the Michael Burrys, and we say like, hey guys, there is a massive downfall coming up, and it's the SP 500. Like in Bitcoin terms, the SP 500 is just terrible, and it's just we're in the middle of a massive downfall and crumbling. Like the market in Bitcoin terms, the SP 500 in Bitcoin terms is crumbling in the same way as in 2008, the housing market was crumbling in dollar terms, right? So this is basically the analysis that we do, what we see, what the charts show us, what the trend shows us, and this a super amazing video that, by the way, let me congratulate all the team who was involved in this, because it truly is an amazing way to put what we're seeing. It's basically that conclusion, Hank. It's that everything, if you look at the markets in dollar terms, most of things look as if they are doing well. But our analysis is that the world is a big Argentina right now. And again, you have like the Argentines who see that things are going up in pesos, but that's just inflation. And in Argentina, if you measure things, if you price things in dollars, you will see the true nature of things, which is that all things are going down. And what we see is that the world is going through the same process right now. Like everybody thinks that the world is up and to the right, that everybody's making money, that everybody's making some bucks. If you have S&P, SPY ETF or whatever, you're making like 10% a year. But the hard truth and the sad truth is that if you price the markets and the assets and everything in the true unbreakable currency, which is Bitcoin, we are going down. And this is the truth. Like, this is not an opinion. This is like the data. This is the charts. This is the facts. This is what's going on. Things in Bitcoin are just going down. The markets in Bitcoin terms are crumbling, and this campaign is just that reflection. It's us showing in a funny, interesting way what is truly happening. And what is truly happening is that most of the traditional assets in the world, they look like they are fine in dollars. In Argentina, it also looked like Argentine stocks were doing fine in pesos, but the hard truth is that they are not doing well if you price them in in a hard, rock solid currency like Bitcoin.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like you never want to see mass inflation like you've seen down in your home country of Argentina, but it's allowed you and the people of Argentina to see the world in the way it's going rather than how a lot of people are viewing it right now, right? It's like everything's fine, the market's up, everything's good, but it's not. And you guys have kind of had the advantage in that sense to kind of see the world for what it is and act accordingly. So it kind of begs my next question, and we'll cap it off here, Borja. 5 years from now, if everything goes the way you think it will, what does success look like to you? Is Bitcoin becoming the new global denominator for markets, or maybe is it something even bigger than that? What do you think?
I think it's 100% that, Hank. I think that in a couple of years, honestly, and I'm sorry that I repeat this, but truly we do think that the world is a big Argentina, and we truly think that that the world is going through the same process. And the process in Argentina was the following. First, you had the smartest people who said it doesn't make any sense whatsoever for me to continue tracking my portfolio, my net worth, my investments, and everything in pesos. So I will do it in a currency that it makes sense to do so. So these early visionaries in Argentina started pricing everything and tracking and using the dollar as their unit of account. And this adoption increased by the years, and every single year you would have more and more and more people doing the same thing. And fast forward 40 years, 2025, from 1980 to 2025, and practically everybody, I would say 95% of the population thinks in dollar terms, and is always, if you go to Argentina and you ask 10 people what's the dollar price, everybody will know what's the exchange rate for the dollar, and they will tell you how much money they make in dollars and so on. So we see a very, very similar process in the world happening. Right now you have the first Argentines, right, starting to price things and think about net worth, investments, portfolios, and so on in Bitcoin terms. And I do think that in this age, everything goes much faster. Like in 1980, the distribution speed or velocity of whatever was X, but now it's X times a million, right? And I do think that in 5 years, most probably what we'll be seeing is that most definitely the smartest people in the planet, plus a lot of others, will be most definitely pricing assets, portfolios, net worth, and many other things in Bitcoin terms. And most probably Bitcoin will also be more consolidated as a settlement currency, as a unit of account, and then if we fast forward to 20, 30 years, most probably it will be same thing as the dollar in Argentina. And I always like to say Bitcoin is to the dollar what the dollar has been to the peso in Argentina, but on a global scale. I think that if we fast forward 20, 30 years, most definitely it will be the same result, and it will be a result where people all over the world will live in their local currencies. Like you will still make money, you will still have your salary in dollars, and you will still go to the grocery shop and pay in dollars, and the same thing for Europeans with the euro and so on. But if I ask you hey, how much money do you make, or what's your net worth, or how much money have you saved in the last 3 years, you will probably tell me one Bitcoin, not $237,000. So yeah, this is what we see.
Well, you certainly make a compelling case, Borja, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in our audience that agree with me. So if people in our audience are ready to start looking at the world through a Bitcoin-denominated lens, what's the best place that I can send them so they can learn more about the Roxom platform and maybe even sign up and get started themselves?
100%. The best thing you can do is, of course, follow RoxomTV. Of course, follow Roxom, and then just jump in on Roxom.com. We have our terminal where you can track thousands of equities and their prices in Bitcoin. Right now, for trading, you can invest or trade in gold and the S&P in Bitcoin terms, either long or short. And coming soon, we're coming with spot markets and such amazing products that people will be flipando, like they say in Spain. People will be going nuts. So just Roxom and RoxomTV on X or Roxom.com on your web, on your computer, on your phone, and just let yourself be surprised and learn how to understand and think about the world in Bitcoin terms, which is the only true currency that we have left today. All the rest is a better form of the Argentine peso, which is a terrible thing.
Well, we certainly appreciate you dropping in to give us more insight on what you and the team over at Roxom are up to, Borja. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. And the next time you guys have a new announcement, we're going to have you back on to talk more about it. Thanks so much for your time today.
100%, Hank, and thank you as always for having me. And hopefully we can, and the next time we can do in person as well.
Would love it. All right, love it. All right, I'll see you soon, Borja. Thanks
Bye,
for your
Hank.
time.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye. All right, gang. Well, we got a lot to talk about this morning, so we're going to jump back into our bull run with our top stories. So let's do it. And also, if you haven't already, again, check out Roxom.com. You can start viewing the world through the Bitcoin lens, because let's be real, that's the way it's going. All right, so tomorrow it's expected that we get an announcement that the Federal Reserve will cut interest rates by a quarter point for the second time just this year. Now, the Fed's expected move would bring rates down to 3.75 to 4%, with markets already betting on more cuts in December and January. Now, the last inflation report showed consumer prices rising 3% year over year, putting tariff fears on the back burner and giving Powell some much-needed breathing room. The real problem, though, is the labor market. Jobless claims are rising, and with the government shutdown delaying official economic data, the Fed's flying half blind right now. Vice Chair Michelle Bowman even hinted that the previous rate statement's additional adjustments language was code for more cuts are underway. Still, not everyone at the Fed agrees. There's a split between those who want to pause to fight inflation and those who think that the job market's already in trouble. New Fed Governor Stephen Moran might even dissent again, pushing for a half-point cut instead of a quarter. And then, of course, there's the politics of it all. The Trump administration has been loud about wanting lower rates, so Powell's not just managing inflation, he's managing expectations from the White House too. Analysts say that Powell won't pre-commit to another cut, but he'll definitely keep the option open. There's even talk the Fed could end quantitative tightening, meaning it might stop shrinking its balance sheet as soon as this month, which, if you've been around Bitcoin for a while, you know what that means. More liquidity equals more risk on sentiment and more upward pressure on hard assets. So, yeah, the Fed might be trying to prevent a labor shutdown or slowdown, but for Bitcoin holders, it sounds a lot like deja vu from back in 2020. Slow growth, rate cuts, and the money printer starting to hum again. And it's been 28 days since the U.S. government shut down, and the nation's largest federal workers union, representing 820,000 employees, is calling on both parties to end this shutdown. They say Democrats and Republicans have both made their point, and now hundreds of thousands of unpaid workers would like to make rent. Senate Democrats have blocked the House's temporary funding bill a dozen times, arguing that a short-term fix isn't enough. Republicans, meanwhile, are facing pressure from within their own ranks, especially as health insurance premiums rise across key swing states. So between food stamps, health care hikes, and unpaid federal workers, this standoff is starting to look less like politics and more like a hostage negotiation. Air traffic controllers are working without pay, major airports have reported staff shortages, and even the FAA issued a temporary ground stop in Los Angeles because of staffing problems. Even Capitol police officers are reportedly struggling to afford gas and childcare while protecting lawmakers who can't agree on their lunch order. And while polls show that Americans blame Republicans slightly more than Democrats, most people agree that both sides look terrible. Congress's approval rating is now 15%, roughly the same as Comcast customer service. So, you know it's not good. And Amazon is dropping the biggest layoff bomb since 2022, this time cutting as many as 30,000 corporate jobs across key departments like logistics, payments, video games, and even AWS, the company's golden goose. That would make it the company's largest job cut since the pandemic boom, when CEO Andy Jassy went on a hiring spree that turned Amazon into the world's biggest corporate co-working space. Now, he's apparently realized that people are expensive and robots don't complain. These cuts follow earlier rolling layoffs between 2022 and 2023 that killed off 27,000 corporate roles. This time, though, the focus is efficiency, or in other words, AI is coming for middle management. Back in June, Jassy warned employees that Amazon would need fewer people doing some of the jobs being done today and more people doing other types of jobs, which is executive speak for if your job doesn't involve coding or teaching AI how to code, good luck to you. Workers have already been panicking in anonymous online chat rooms trying to figure out if they're next, but no one really knows because Amazon layoffs are like Prime deliveries. They can show up anytime, anywhere, and there's no way to stop them. And in other news, American Bitcoin Corp just stacked another 1,414 Bitcoin, bringing their total holdings to over 3,800 BTC. That's about $445 million worth of sound money sitting on their balance sheet. The announcement came straight from the company's X account, confirming that ABTC's been busy turning dollar liabilities into digital assets. They're now the 26th largest public Bitcoin treasury in the world, despite being founded only 6 months ago. And let's check out some more about it. So we're going to head to camera 3 here, gang. And what we're bringing up right now, this is Bitcoin-Treasuries.net. It's the #1 place on all of the interwebs to check out what your favorite public Bitcoin treasury companies are doing with their stack and how that affects their overall financial numbers. So right now we can see the leaderboard. Of course, at the top of said leaderboard, we have Strategy in first place with like 640,000 something Bitcoin right now. A lot. But now, way down the list, we got American Bitcoin Holdings. I think it said they're 26 now. Is that right? Where are they? There we go. Yeah, so if we click on there, we can go onto American Bitcoin Holdings individual page on the website. So this is where you can get the short and skinny on what's going on with their Bitcoin holdings and how it relates to their overall business. So right now you can see the updated number. They got 3,865 Bitcoin. Usually you'll see an average cost per price and the profit loss. For some reason it's not available on this one, but on most it is. So, and let's see, yeah, nothing with regard to their stock financials. So normally you can get a lot more granular with the numbers here and how the Bitcoin affects their overall market cap and their business model. But on this particular page, it seems like the info is a little bit loosey-goosey, but what are you going to do? Let's get back to camera 1 here, guys. BitcoinTreasuries.net. Check it out. So the co-founder of American Bitcoin and the chief strategy officer, of course, is Eric Trump. And he says that the company is focused on increasing holdings and giving shareholders transparency through a new metric called Satoshis per share. It shows exactly how much Bitcoin backs each share, a metric that traditional finance definitely didn't ask for, but now kind of has to respect. And according to executive chairman Asher Ganoot, their secret weapon is actually pretty simple. They're mining their own Bitcoin. Ganoot says the company's integrated mining operations let them acquire Bitcoin at a heavy discount, giving them a structural advantage over treasury vehicles that only buy on exchanges. Basically, they're not stacking sats, they're manufacturing them. And you remember Mt. Gox, right? The exchange that lost 850,000 Bitcoin back in 2014? Well, they've delayed their creditor payments yet again because apparently time is the only thing this company still knows how to lose. The court-appointed trustee Nobuaki Kobayashi and announced the new repayment deadline October 31st of 2026. That's another full year of waiting for thousands of people who've already been waiting for over a decade. Now, Kobayashi says many creditors still haven't completed the necessary procedures while others ran into processing issues, which sounds like the bureaucratic version of my dog ate your Bitcoin. So far, about 19,500 creditors have received their funds, but many more are still in limbo, part of what's become one of the slowest, most drawn-out restitution processes in crypto history. The Tokyo court approved the new timeline on Monday. Mt. Gox still holds around 34,689 BTC, worth nearly $4 billion at current prices. Now, To put that into perspective, that's enough to move markets, but apparently not enough to move paperwork, because this saga started way back in 2014 when Mt. Gox collapsed after hackers stole roughly 850,000 BTC, about 7% of all Bitcoin in existence at that time. The Tokyo District Court approved a rehabilitation plan in 2021 that aimed to return around $9 billion in Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash to roughly 24,000 creditors. But since then, it's been delay after delay after delay. At this rate, Satoshi Nakamoto will reappear before some of these creditors get their coins. Ironically, though, Bitcoin's market barely reacted to this latest delay, a sign of how much stronger and more liquid the ecosystems have become. So that's good news, at least. And Google says it's officially achieved quantum advantage, running a molecular simulation 13,000 times faster than the world's most powerful supercomputers. Because apparently, don't be evil wasn't enough. Now they're aiming for don't be decryptable too. The experiment used Google's new Willow quantum processor, which basically plays ping pong with atoms using something called quantum echoes. It's kind of like yelling into a canyon, except the canyon could someday melt the entire global financial system. Google says the results are verifiable, meaning other labs can reproduce them, assuming they also have a multi-million-dollar quantum computer just lying around. But here's where things get a little spicy. A computer powerful enough to do this could, in theory, crack the cryptography that protects Bitcoin, banks, medical data, and, basically everything. One cybersecurity expert called it the biggest threat to Bitcoin since its inception. Others say it's not time to panic yet. Right now, though, the strongest quantum systems can only break keys about 22 bits long. Bitcoin's encryption sits somewhere around 2,000 to 4,000 bits, so we're safe for now. But the clock is certainly ticking. The SEC already got a submission for quantum-resistant standards by 2035. So yeah, Bitcoin might need a wardrobe change before Skynet learns to mine. But until then, it's business as usual. The only thing breaking Bitcoin lately is human stupidity, not quantum supremacy. All right, we're taking a quick break, but when we're back, more blockchain report underway, including more of today's top news. So stay tuned. We'll be back with you right after this. All right, welcome back to this morning's bull run. Let's get back into it. S&P Global Ratings have officially called Michael Saylor's Bitcoin hoarding company strategy a B-. That's not a grade from your high school report card. That's a junk bond rating, friends. In Wall Street terms, junk means risky. In Bitcoin terms, junk means you're early. S&P says strategy's high Bitcoin concentration, narrow business focus, weak risk-adjusted capitalization, and low US dollar liquidity are major weaknesses. Or in other words, Saylor owns too much Bitcoin, doesn't care about fiat, and refuses to apologize for it. This marks the first time a Bitcoin Treasury-focused company has ever received an S&P credit rating, a historic moment where TradFi basically said, we don't get it, but we'll score it anyway, I guess. And the best part, the market just kind of shrugged it off. Strategy stock actually rose 2%, showing that investors don't care what the S&P thinks, they care what Saylor's buying. And Bitcoin miners and the Bitcoin price used to move together like a codependent couple, but according to JP Morgan, they're now officially seeing other people. The bank says mining stocks have decoupled from Bitcoin since July, even as the coin itself trades sideways. Apparently, miners have found a new love, artificial intelligence. JP Morgan analysts say miners are pivoting their operations toward AI infrastructure. The result? Mining stocks are now priced more like tech companies than like Bitcoin proxies. Because if there's one thing that Wall Street loves more than block rewards, it's buzzwords. The shift, well, it makes sense. AI offers more stable, higher margin revenue than digging for digital gold while your power bill eats your soul. After all, the average cost to mine one Bitcoin is now around $92,000. By the next halving in 2028, JP Morgan says that could hit $180,000. So mining might soon be less profitable than starting a WeWork. Higher energy and hardware costs aren't exactly helping either, especially as power contracts renew. That's why big miners with deep pockets are doing just fine. They can switch rigs between AI and Bitcoin like gym bros swapping protein shakes. But smaller miners, they're already exploring other side hustles like holding Ethereum or Solana treasuries. because nothing says we believe in Bitcoin like buying the competition. Still, this decoupling might not be all bad news for BTC. If miners chase AI profits, network hash growth slows, making mining slightly less brutal. So while miners flirt with GPUs, Bitcoin just keeps doing what it does best, existing without needing rebranding every 6 months. And Elon Musk, you know him, the richest man in the world, well, he's launched his own version of Wikipedia. It's called Grokpedia, and yes, it's exactly what it sounds like, Wikipedia, but make it Elon. He's calling it an unbiased encyclopedia written by AI. Critics have already accused Grokpedia of copying Wikipedia's content verbatim, errors and all, but with a dash of Muskian spin. For example, one entry falsely claims that Vivek Ramaswamy took a prominent role in the US Doge service after Musk's departure. Newsflash, he did not. Apparently, Grokpedia cited BBC and Al Jazeera articles that never in fact said that. Or in other words, it's AI doing what AI does best, confidently making stuff up. The site's powered by XAI, the same model behind Musk's chatbot Grok, which has previously pushed conspiracy theories, made not safe for work images of users, and once diagnosed someone's injury incorrectly. So naturally, Musk decided to let it write history. Victor, can you pull this thing up for me? I need to take a look at this. This sounds weird.
Here it is, Hank.
All right, so it looks just like Grok at first glance. So I'm trying to figure out how does this work. So we just type in a name there. Let's type in Musk. Type in Elon Musk, for instance. I want to see what Elon's Wikipedia actually says about him.
Wait, so
right?
Grokpedia, right? Yeah.
So what is Elon Musk? Yeah, so this is his Wikipedia. What does Grokpedia have to say about Elon? Is it completely flattering? Or does it cut through the noise and give us some bipartisan opinions here? Okay. I mean, it looks very similar to Wikipedia at first glance. But I don't know, man, like that, the whole AI slop thing where it just creates stuff out of
I'm not a
thin air.
fan.
We've seen it time and again. Are there moderators here? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Victor, but I think Wikipedia has moderators, so you can put anything in, but then a moderator can strike it if it's not
Right.
true, right?
The mediator here would be the moderator. Sorry, would be AI.
Would be AI.
Yeah.
I don't know if AI is quite there yet. It almost seems like their fonts, like the Wikipedia and Grok font, are also pretty similar. It's like kind of an academia lookingness to it, right?
I still like the Wikipedia better. It just looks better.
I do too. It looks better, and I'll be honest, I like the human element of it. How you can really, you'll always see something happens. Like, for instance, I freaking hate him, but Aaron Rodgers used to always beat the crap out of my Chicago Bears when he was on the Green Bay Packers. So little internet trolls would go into the Chicago Bears Wikipedia page, and they'd put owner, and they'd put Aaron Rodgers, and it would last there for an hour or two before someone took it out. So I enjoy that funness element to it, and I don't see Grokpedia doing that the same way. They don't know how to have fun, right? Right, Grok? Yeah, see, Grok's not fun like that. In fact, I think I told you this before the show. So my high school in Chicago has a list of famous people and famous alumni. A couple of them I know were Mike Wilbon from PTI went there, John Mulaney, the comedian, went there. But so did back when Charlie Sheen was famous, 10 years ago, and the whole Tiger Blood thing came out. He had these 3 goddesses. One of those goddesses went to my school. My buddy put her name in there, and she was one of the notable alums as Charlie Sheen's 3rd goddess. So that was fun. They immediately struck that in 2 seconds.
Why don't we search them up? Or you don't want to?
I don't know if we should. Let's. I'd be curious. So go to St. Ignatius College Prep High School, Chicago. I'll be very curious.
You have to repeat that. What is that?
Already has that stuff. So St. Ignatius College Prep High School, Chicago. Let's see. Yeah, IGNATIUS.
Sorry, the college prep.
Oh, there we go. There's a lot of St. Ignatius, though. College Prep, Chicago.
All right.
Let's see.
I'm going to type this on Wikipedia, too. Oh, shoot.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
It's a live show, guys.
Yeah, I wonder what happens if you search. I wonder what happens if you search Wikipedia in Grok and then Grokpedia in Wikipedia. How does it reference each other? Is also a question I have in my mind.
Yeah, let's do that first.
Let's see. Okay, so it comes up.
Okay, search for. Okay.
Okay, so it seems to give.
Seems to be nice to it.
Yeah, it's not like Wikipedia, the bastard son
Right.
of Grokkopedia that is prone with tons of human error.
So,
Okay, now let's do Grokkopedia, and I
Oh,
wonder if it's even
sorry,
updated
this thing
yet, 'cause
is
this is pretty
slow.
new. That's okay. That's why everyone's moving to Grokkopedia. Wikipedia is too slow. Grok's pretty quick.
Oh.
Like their image generator is good. Wow. Okay. All right. So they seem
See,
to be playing
I
nice
like
for
the
now.
picture. I like these details, and Grokkopedia doesn't give you that. It's just like a bunch of paragraphs.
Yeah, we need more of those little boxes with more of the immediate info. I don't want to read all this.
Yeah, this is not appealing to the eyes. Like this is still a lot,
isn't.
but I feel like I can read this.
Yeah, I mean, AI still got to catch up, I think, on the UI and UX of things. It doesn't quite, I think, fully grasp that. Because, yeah, this is a lot more appealing
Okay.
to me.
It was
Grok. I won't be using
Saint. What was the name of the
Saint
school?
Ignatius, Ignatius, College Prep, Chicago.
All right.
Let's see.
Chicago.
All right, what do you got for me, Grokkopedia? I always thought Grok was a weird name, too. It reminds me of Groot.
Oh, I love Groot.
And a lot of people, there you go, St. Ignatius College
Is it
Prep. I
Facebook
think that
Ignatius?
fourth one there.
Oh,
there's no
here it
O.
is.
There
Okay.
you go. Okay, private. Okay, do they have any pictures or anything though?
They don't do pictures.
Oh, see, that's a big missed opportunity there.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like that this school, my old high school was kind of cool because it looks like Hogwarts. It's a pretty wild thing. I bet Wikipedia's got something. Oh, they got one.
They have this.
They're really
What's
great
like a
pictures,
map?
but they got good info. Okay,
Oh, here it is.
Southside Chicago. There it is. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's the back of the school is quite wild. It's erroneously expensive though now. It's like I think it costs as much. Like it's like 20 something grand a year. It was not that. I could not afford that.
And see, and then with Wikipedia, there's like these hyperlinks, right? So if you want to learn more of a specific thing that they're mentioning, you can just click on it
Right.
and it'll take you there.
Well, Grok's got to start somewhere, I guess, right? Like
I
you'll
guess
probably see it continue to copy Wikipedia more and more as the time goes.
It does give you where the sources come from, like Wikipedia,
It just cites Wikipedia for everything.
that'd be hilarious.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, Grokkopedia, it's a start, but right now I'm not going to be switching.
It does say version 1, so
Right.
Yeah.
So okay, you got to come in a little bit of slack, but it's doing at least a passable job of mimicking Wikipedia for now. They got the fonts down, so
yep.
Not bad. All right, Victor, should we hop on to the next story, or
Yep.
should we take a quick
Let's
break?
do the next story.
All right, let's do it, gang. All right, so now we're talking about ChatGPT because apparently it's getting its own wallet and it's PayPal. Because why buy a chatbot premium plan when you can impulse shop inside your existential crisis? PayPal announced it's officially partnering with OpenAI to embed its digital wallet directly into ChatGPT, letting users pay for whatever the AI convinces them to buy next. Shares shot up 14% on the news, which is what happens when Wall Street hears the words AI and payments in the same sentence. Starting next year, both buyers and sellers will be able to complete transactions directly through ChatGPT. So if you tell the bot you want a new laptop, it won't just recommend one, it'll sell it to you. CEO Alex Chris told CNBC the goal is to make checkout safe and secure with protections like package tracking and dispute resolutions already baked in. Because nothing says trust quite like buying something through the same chatbot that occasionally hallucinates facts. Chris says this deal puts PayPal at the center of what he calls agentic commerce, basically AI doing your shopping for you. This makes PayPal one of the first players in OpenAI's e-commerce ecosystem, which already includes Shopify, Etsy, and Walmart. So yeah, your AI can now recommend a handmade Etsy mug, add it to your Shopify cart, and check out via PayPal without you ever leaving the chat. PayPal says users will be able to pay with linked bank accounts, credit cards, or stored balances. And because this is PayPal after all, yes, they'll also get dispute resolution if their AI shopping spree goes sideways. The company also plans to expand its use of OpenAI's enterprise tools internally to speed up product cycles, which is corporate speak for we're replacing interns with GPTs now. So what's really happening here, you ask? Well, PayPal is trying to position itself as the payments backbone of the AI shopping era, a world where you don't browse for products, your AI assistant buys them for you. And it's smart, because when humans stop thinking before spending, payment volume tends to go vertical. And Tom Lee, the chairman of Bitmain, says Bitcoin's heading for $2 million within the next 5 years. During a recent podcast, he said gold's rally is being fueled by stablecoin issuers buying it to over-collateralize, which somehow makes sense if you squint hard enough. He says if that trend continues, Bitcoin, as digital gold, follows suit, landing somewhere between $1.6 and $2 million. I mean, and honestly, at that price, you could buy the actual gold bars and still have money left to fund the next FTX documentary. Lee also revealed Bitmain is going full degen on Ethereum. They already hold 3.2 million ETH and plan to expand to 6 million, because nothing says diversification quite like betting half your company on Vitalik's sleep schedule. Now, Lee believes this will push Bitmain into the top 1,000 U.S. companies by profit, transforming it from a mining giant into an institutional portfolio darling. He also said 2025 marks a turning point, a transition from traditional finance to blockchain-based systems. According to him, Wall Street will eventually adopt Ethereum as a neutral public blockchain. Because if there's one thing Wall Street loves, it's being neutral. Lee predicts if Ethereum's price ratio to Bitcoin returns to its 2021 peak, ETH could hit 21,000, and that it's still undervalued. So, Ethereum's the future, Bitcoin's the standard, and the rest of us are apparently too poor to understand either. Still, if Bitcoin really does hit $2 million, well, Lee's going to look like a prophet. And if not, well, at least we'll have a new meme to print on t-shirts at the next Bitcoin conference. Love those shirts. And for years now, Bitcoin's been called an inflation hedge, but according to new research from New York Digital Investment Group, that's not really accurate. Turns out Bitcoin doesn't track inflation, it tracks the dollar's weakness. Researcher Greg Cipollaro says the data shows weak and inconsistent links between Bitcoin and inflation readings. The better predictor, the strength of the US dollar and overall liquidity conditions. Because when the dollar loses value, Bitcoin gains it. And when the Fed floods the system with liquidity, Bitcoin throws a party. Now, Cipollaro says even inflation expectations, not just CPI, fail to explain Bitcoin's price movements. Instead, Bitcoin behaves more like gold. Both assets rise when the dollar falls, but while gold's been doing that for half a century, Bitcoin's correlation is newer and less steady. It's a subtle difference, but it explains a lot. Bitcoin's price isn't a simple response to inflation, it's a complex reflection of how tight or loose money really is. And right now, money's loosening again. Still, not all the signals are rosy. On-chain data shows illiquid supply, the Bitcoin sitting quietly in long-term wallets, fell from 14.38 million earlier this month to 14.3 million by October 23rd. That means about 62,000 Bitcoin worth roughly $6.8 billion has moved back into circulation. Now, whenever long dormant coins wake up, it usually adds some short-term selling pressure to the market. There's also been steady selling from wallets holding between 0.1 and 100 BTC, and first-time buyer supply has dropped to around 213,000 Bitcoin. Momentum traders seem to have stepped aside. Demand's softer, but the macro backdrop still dominates. And if the dollar keeps sliding, Bitcoin's next move could be sharp. Because while inflation might confuse economists, liquidity speaks Bitcoin's native language, and the dollar's weakness is music to its ears. All right, we're taking a break, but when we're back, we're going to have some news around the world from Blockchain Without Borders and much more coming your way right after this quick break.
It runs on Bitcoin. Introducing Roxom, the first ever exchange where Bitcoiners can trade treasury stocks entirely in BTC. Get exposure to top Bitcoin holding companies like MicroStrategy and Metaplanet, priced in Bitcoin from the start. No fiat, no middlemen. This is what financial freedom looks like. Early access now live at roxom.com/treasuries. Built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners.
All right, welcome back. It's time for some blockchain without borders. This is the part of the show where we see what's going on in other parts of the world. So let's get into it, shall we? First up, Argentina's markets are surging, and all it took was President Javier Milei steamrolling or chainsawing everyone in sight. His La Libertad Avanza party pulled off a landslide victory in Sunday's legislative elections, the kind of blowout that even the most bullish analysts didn't dare predict. With over 90% of ballots counted, Milei snagged 41% of the vote, taking 64 of 127 lower house seats and 13 of 24 Senate posts. Markets had expected closer to 30%, so this was like Argentina walking into Wall Street and shouting, "Surprise! Capitalism's back." Now, the peso immediately started climbing in crypto markets as results rolled in Sunday night, because nothing says confidence restored like watching your national currency finally stop playing limbo against the dollar. Analysts say that Milei's win gives him the political capital to go full shock therapy on Argentina's economy. We're talking privatizations, deregulations, and all the fiscal caffeine he's been promising. It also reassures investors that Washington's still on Team Milei, because before the vote, the Trump administration inked a $20 billion swap line with Argentina's central bank and was negotiating another $20 billion in financing to stabilize the peso. Trump summed it up the only way Trump can by saying, if he wins, we're staying with him. If he doesn't, we're gone. Well, he won, so America's sticking around. Now, traders are predicting a bond market fiesta. Since Milei took office in 2023, Argentina's dollar debt has gained 144%, making it the third best performer in the world, behind only Lebanon and Ecuador, which is sort of like being the least broken chair in a collapsing dining set. Now, with 41% of the national vote, Milei has the leverage to actually pass his reforms, assuming Congress doesn't faint first. And Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro says the United States is fabricating a new war. And to be fair, the U.S. didn't exactly help the optics by sending the world's largest warship straight to his backyard. The USS Gerald R. Ford, a floating city that can launch 90 aircraft and cost more than Venezuela's GDP on a good day, has officially entered the Caribbean. Because apparently nothing says peacekeeping like picking an aircraft carrier the size of a mall near someone you've been calling a narco-terrorist. The Pentagon says the ship will enhance and augment efforts to disrupt drug trafficking and dismantle criminal organizations in the region. The U.S. has already conducted 10 airstrikes on vessels near Venezuela since September. Trump claims they're part of his war on drugs, which after 50 years and $1 trillion is still undefeated at creating more wars than it ends. Maduro, of course, isn't buying it, saying the U.S. promised they would never again get involved in a war, and they are fabricating a war. The concern in Caracas is that the U.S. buildup isn't about cocaine, it's about regime change, which, to be fair, is usually the sequel to every American anti-drug movie. The U.S. still doesn't recognize Maduro as Venezuela's legitimate leader after the 2024 election was widely dismissed as being rigged. Opposition tallies showed their candidate won in a landslide, but Maduro apparently didn't get the memo, or at least refused to read it. For the record, Venezuela plays a relatively minor role in the regional drug trade, but hey, why let facts get in the way of a good justification for sending in a floating airport? Meanwhile, Trump told reporters at the White House that he's considering land action next, bragging that we stopped all drugs from coming in by sea and promising I will stop all drugs from coming in by land very shortly, which would be impressive if the drugs weren't, literally already there. BBC Verifies spotted additional U.S. military aircraft popping up across Puerto Rico, while CNN says Trump is mulling strikes on cocaine facilities inside Venezuela, a phrase that definitely doesn't sound like the prequel to another 20-year conflict. Now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio tried to calm everyone down mid-flight to Qatar, saying, "We've deployed U.S. assets all over the planet, but when we do it in our own hemisphere, everyone freaks out." He then repeated that Venezuela is a transshipment organization, accusing the regime of helping move Colombian cocaine with the participation of elements of this regime. Military experts, however, point out the obvious. You don't need the world's biggest aircraft carrier to bust boats full of coke. That's like using a Tesla Cybertruck to chase down a shoplifter on a bicycle. Meanwhile, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says that 6 narco-terrorists were killed in the latest U.S. strike, claiming the boat belonged to Tren de Aragua, a Venezuelan gang recently labeled a terrorist organization by Washington. That brings the total death toll to 43 since September and counting. Now, not everyone in Washington is cheering up for this. 25 Democratic senators wrote to the White House accusing the administration of conducting at least one strike without evidence that the targets posed a threat to the U.S. Senator Rand Paul then chimed in, saying Trump needs congressional approval for this sort of thing, though that's not exactly something presidents have been big on lately. Trump brushed off the criticism, saying, "We're allowed to do that, and if we do it by land, we may go back to Congress." May, as in if time permits between airstrikes. Now, former State Department lawyer Brian Funacane told the BBC that this whole thing amounts to a constitutional crisis, but added that Congress seems too busy playing defense for Trump to notice. It's Congress's job to control the military force, he said. That control has been usurped by the White House. Dr. Christopher Sabatini from Chatham House summed it up best, saying this is about regime change. They're probably not going to invade. The hope is to strike fear into the Venezuelan military and Maduro's inner circle so they move against him. So, in short, the U.S. has parked a $13 billion warship off of Venezuela's coast, killed 43 people in the name of anti-narcotics, and has its president openly talking about land invasions. Maduro says it's all a setup, Trump says it's all about drugs, and everyone else says this move's getting a little too familiar. We're taking a break, but when we're back, more Blockchain Report coming your way right after this. All right, and we're back. We're going to take a peek at the RoxomTV X account. Now, if you're not already following, make sure to do so. RoxomTV on X, Twitter, or whatever you want to call it. Always giving you the most up-to-date signal 24/7, telling you everything that you need to know. So check it out if you haven't already. And let's see what they are tweeting about this morning. All right, so this just in the last hour. Looks like Microsoft actually holds 27% stake in OpenAI. Not sure how I feel about this. I don't necessarily like the AIs working its way into everything. Get out of here, Rizbot. I'm talking about you. That's exactly what I mean here. They're infiltrating everything we know, and nothing will be left for us actual humans out there. So, I mean, I got to imagine we're going to be seeing OpenAI working its way into every piece of Microsoft software in the not-too-distant future. So, yeah, I guess that's the way the world is working right now, is what it is. Let's scroll down and see what else we got moving and shaking this morning. Here we go. Just a couple hours ago, Donald Trump's True Social partners with Crypto.com to launch a prediction market platform. Just what we needed. Another degenerate online gambling website where we can bet on anything. We've already got
everything's computer.
We've already got Polymarket. Get out of here, Donald. And now we have the Donald getting in on the fun. Boy, we really went from sports gambling is bad to now just gamble on any damn thing you want. It's amazing how the times have changed, and so fast. All right, we're scrolling down a little further to one more. This is quite cool. We have Saudi Arabia is planning to build the world's first ever sky stadium over 1,150 feet above ground. Look at this frickin' thing. No way am I going to this sky stadium. This sounds like the beginning of the new Netflix documentary that I don't want to watch because it doesn't end well for anybody. Look at that frickin' thing. I don't think I would do that. Victor, would you go in this thing? He doesn't have a mic. Yeah, I'm going to assume he wouldn't either. This looks like an absolute death trap in the clouds. And just imagine how big this building must be to put a stadium inside of it. Stadiums often hold, there's the Chicago Bears stadium. It's the smallest in the NFL, holds 60,000. But most football stadiums hold in the 80 to 100,000. So just imagine how big the base of this building must be. Ugh, I don't like it. They're always trying to outdo each other over there in the Saudi Arabia. They got that line city, which is crazy. I don't really understand the need or want for that, but they certainly like spectacle, so whatever. All right, I think that's enough X for today, gang, but I do believe it is time for some scam alerts, so let's roll the stinger and get to camera one. All right, welcome back. It's time for Scam Alert, where we talk about the current scams that are going on in the industry and how you can protect yourself so that you don't become a cautionary tale. Well, you guys are familiar with the phrase, right? Do your own research. Well, apparently the phrase alone isn't really working these days. As a new report from SumSub, a global anti-fraud firm, says 1 in 3 Americans have either been scammed by crypto or know someone that has, which means statistically, one of the Winklevoss twins should probably check their wallet right now. Crypto use in the U.S. is growing. We're talking 36% of adults interacted with it in just the past year. But with great adoption comes great stupidity. Nearly half of Gen Z and millennials, we're talking 46 and 49% respectively, say they've been directly or indirectly burned. So congratulations, Zoomers. You're leading the next generation of financial innovation and simultaneously the next generation of victims. The top scams: social engineering, Ponzi schemes, fake giveaways, each duping about 30% of respondents. Or in other words, if a stranger online tells you to send ETH to get double back, maybe, I don't know, don't. Then there, of course, is the whole AI problem. Synthetic identity fraud, the kind using deepfakes and fake documents, hit 35% of respondents, and 1 in 5 got targeted personally. SumSub says synthetic document fraud in the U.S. jumped 300% this year, and deepfake scams skyrocketed by 700%. So if Satoshi ever starts DMing you for seed phrases, maybe double check it's not ChatGPT wearing glasses. The average loss per victim was around $3,300. When asked who should foot the bill, a third blamed the platforms, 20% blamed the victims, and the rest were probably still blaming Gary Gensler. Now, trust isn't doing great either. Only 26% said they trust crypto platforms more than their banks. 54% trust them less, including 41% who said much less. Now, most people now support more regulation, including new proposals like the Genius Act and the Clarity for Payment Stablecoins Act, because nothing indicates financial freedom quite like begging the government to fix it. Support for these laws was highest among people who had already been scammed, proving pain really is the best teacher. And 69% said that AI developers should be held accountable when their tech gets used for fraud, because apparently the best way to stop scammers is to sue the nerds. All right, we're taking a quick break, but when we're back, we're wrapping up today's show with a little bullish, bearish, or BS, where we'll see how things are looking for Bitcoin as we enter the middle of this week. So stay tuned. The Blockchain Report will be right back after this quick message. Wish you could grab cash without selling your Bitcoin? Yeah, same. But hey, that's why Ledn exists. They're the global leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Over $9 billion issued since 2018, with a perfect record protecting client assets. And what makes a Ledn loan different? Well, with custody loans, your collateral stays put. They don't go degen and lend it out for yield. There are no credit checks. It funds in under 6 hours. No monthly payments. You can repay anytime with 0 penalties. And for transparency grown-ups actually want, proof of reserves reports every 6 months, verified by a top accounting firm. Bottom line is Ledn lets Bitcoin holders unlock liquidity without selling. You can check it out over at ledn.io/RoxomTV. That's LEDN.io/RoxomTV. All right, gang, it is that part of the program today where we wrap up today's show with a little bullish, bearish, or BS. This is where we recap our top stories and decide how they are looking for Bitcoin as we move into the last week of October. All right, so first up, we got President Trump just inked a deal with Japan to secure access to rare earth minerals, the critical materials behind everything from smartphones to missiles, just days before sitting down with China. It's a clear signal that the U.S. is preparing for a long game in the resource wars. I'm feeling bullish about this one. Why? Because anything that strengthens U.S. supply chains weakens China's economic chokehold, and when China's grip loosens, Bitcoin's narrative as a neutral reserve asset only gets stronger. This is macro level Bitcoin fuel. Less dependence on adversarial economies, more incentive for sovereign monetary hedges like BTC. So global de-dollarization plus supply diversification equals long-term bullish for Bitcoin, baby. So good start. Next up, we got Hurricane Melissa has become one of the most powerful storms ever recorded, already killing multiple people before landfall in Jamaica and expected to cause billions in damage across the entire Caribbean. I'm calling bearish on this one. Why? Well, disasters of this magnitude destabilize regional markets, they disrupt logistics, they drive short-term fear trades into cash and commodities, not crypto. So while Bitcoin sometimes rallies on global uncertainty, natural disasters usually bring liquidity crunches, not risk appetite. So expect some short-term pullbacks as traders de-risk. So I'm feeling bearish on this one. All right, so we got one bullish, one bearish, one to go. Let's see if we can right the ship here. So Argentina's President Javier Milei just chainsawed his way through midterm elections, securing a dominant victory that sent bonds and the peso soaring overnight. Markets are finally showing confidence in his radical economic reforms, and it's making me feel a little bullish. I'm feeling bullish on it. I mean, Argentina has been ground zero for inflation horror stories, and every time the country flirts with economic sanity, Bitcoin gains further legitimacy as a parallel monetary system. Now, Milei's victory could stabilize the peso short term, but his pro-Bitcoin stance keeps the long-term BTC narrative alive and glowing. So when Argentina wins, it equals global Bitcoin credibility boost across the board. So I'm bullish on it. So today's final score, we got 2 bullish, 1 bearish, and 0 BS, which means today's score is firmly in the bullish camp. The macro backdrop, stronger U.S.-Japan trade cooperation, and pro-Bitcoin political victories abroad outweighs the short-term bearish impact of natural disasters. Bitcoin's holding above 115K and confirms the sentiment. Buyers still believe that the storm, both literal and market, will pass, and we're feeling bullish going into this last week of what hopefully could still be called October. So gang, that is a wrap for another Tuesday edition of the Blockchain Report. If you haven't already, just do me the thing. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to RoxomTV, the Blockchain Report, and Hank at RoxomTV to get your daily dose of Bitcoin bedlam and crypto chaos. So please do it. We certainly appreciate and love all of your support. And we will be back tomorrow, same time, same place, same monetary and financial chaos right here in the Blockchain Report. But until then, as always, stay safe out there, stay informed, and always be sure to hodl on. See you guys tomorrow.